If you like my dad's videos, please subscribe to QA Insights channel.
Welcome to Learn JMeter series. In this season 6 episode 2, we are going to see about how you can do remote distributed testing in JMeter. By default, from one single instance of JMeter, you cannot test high load. Basically, you will reach the limit of CPU and memory and other parameters. Assume that you want to test, say, 500 threads. Definitely, you cannot do that from one machine. So it is always a good idea to spread the load across multiple machines so that the load will be distributed among the machines and the machines will send the load on behalf of you and you can see the aggregated report in your machine. So this setup is called master worker setup. So JMeter supports this pattern of distributed load testing. There are a lot of cloud-based tools are already available, but if you have your own machine and you have a couple of other instances which are idle, then you can use those stuffs for your remote distributed testing. So in the left side, in the slide, you can see there is a JMeter master and we have multiple JMeter worker, and on the right side, we have your application under test. Assume that you want to inject a load of say 10,000 threads. Definitely you cannot inject from one machine. So what you can do is you can split the load across multiple nodes and those nodes will inject the load to your application under test. So here the JMeter master will act as a controller. Basically it will control the worker machines by sending the commands and by listening to the results. And these worker nodes will send the load to the application under test and send back the results to the JMeter master. So it looks very simple on a high level, but whenever you try to configure by following the online documentation or other videos, those not be clear and you will end up in issues. So this video will solve the problem. I'm going to teach you every single line and how you can achieve this very simple way. And also I'm going to teach you how it works behind the scene. So first thing, we have to identify the worker node. So worker node could be Ubuntu machine or Windows machine. So just compatible with JMeter. And master node also can be any other any operating system. Just make sure JMeter is running in that machine. And these machines must be in the subnet. So this is the one of the prerequisite. And you should be able to install Java and JMeter. So make sure you are using the even versions across the machines. When it comes to the setup, by default, remote distributed pattern uses the SSL setup. So basically you have to be secured communication should happen, but you can turn off this setup so that you can achieve the remote distributed very easily. So first we are going to see not using SSL, and once it is done, then we can see how you can leverage the SSL setup. And make sure you have the machines in the same subnetwork. So if you go to in Windows, if you go to command prompt and type ipconfig, you can see the subnet mask, and you can calculate whether both the machines are in the same network or not using some calculator. I will put the link in the description. And make sure you have the JMeter version, Java version or identical. You can mix and match the operating system, I don't care. Make sure those operating systems are able to run JMeter and Java. So those are the only prerequisites. Now let's go back to the command prompt and see how you can set up the master and worker. So this is my master machine, Windows 10. And I have another worker machine which is using the Raspberry Pi, which is in my home network. So first let us configure the master node. So the version I'm using is 5.4.1 and the JMeter, Java version is Java 11. So if you go to command prompt or PowerShell and if you type Java version, make sure you have the even version across the nodes. And here I have the JMeter.bat. And if you type hyphen question mark, you will get the JMeter version. So I'm using 5.4.1 and also in the Raspberry Pi also I'm using the 5.4.1. Here you are seeing my JMeter version is 5.4.1. Now let us open the jmeter.properties file in the master machine. So this is my jmeter.properties of the master machine, and here just search for RMI, and in the line number 268 there is a configuration called remote_hosts. So here you have to enter the IP addresses of your worker machine. Here you can enter multiple nodes separated by a comma. So in this case, I'm going with only one instance because I have only one instance of Raspberry Pi running in my home network. But you can add the multiple node IP addresses here. And here, if you scroll down, we are going to dissect each configuration. But we are not going to change anything. We are going to use the default settings for most of the options. So first thing is here the RMI port. So as you know, JMeter communicates via another JMeter using the RMI. So this is the server port for the RMI, which is 1099, which is the default one. If you want to change, you can change it. You can follow the instruction based on the operating system here for Windows, for Linux on the client. And if you scroll down, you can see the local port for the RMI, which is 0. And the client tries 1, and delay between the retries is 5,000 milliseconds. And also if you see the server.rmi.port also, again, this also you can leave it as a default one. And the server.rmi.local port is 4000. So this one we will set up in the worker machine. And if you see here, if you scroll down a little bit, here you can see the configuration of secure RMI connection. So here we can configure the secure RMI connection by generating the JKS file, but we are not going to do that as of now. First we will see, we will turn off the setting. So here in line number 345, you can turn off the SSL by flipping the flag to true. So initially it will be false. So here make sure the setting is true. And just to save this, this is the setup, only setup you have to do it in your master machine. Next, what we are going to do is, we are going to configure the worker machine. Now let us connect to the worker machine. I'm going to SSH into my Raspberry Pi. So SSH Pi at QA Insights. First let us identify the IP address. So here you can see the IP address of this machine is 192.168.37, and in the left side this is my IP address of the master machine, which is 192.168.18. So now I'm going to cd into JMeter, and I'm going to show you the properties of my JMeter. So here you can see there are only two properties I have changed. One is the RMI.local port, which is 4000, and I have flagged the SSL.disable equals true. So only these two settings I have configured in the worker machine, and in the master machine I have only added the IP address of my worker, and also the server.rmi.ssl.disable equals true in the master machine. So this local port equals 4000, which will help us to prevent assigning the random ports whenever JMeter server got started, so that you will not face any issues whenever you start the remote distribution load testing. Okay, now let us start the JMeter server in the worker machine. So what you have to do is, we have to send the JMeter-server file along with the property java.rmi.server.hostname and the IP address of the worker machine. So the worker machine IP address is .37, and if you hit enter, what will happen is this will start the JMeter as a server using the local port 4000, and it will display the message stating the endpoint and the object details. This means this particular worker machine is now ready to take the request from the master machine. Now let us go back to the master machine and let us launch the JMeter. Okay, now let me open a simple JMeter script which I have created. So this will hit the example.com, using the one thread, and the duration of the execution we can say 20 seconds, and hit save. And if you go to run menu and if you go to remote start, you can see the IP addresses of all of your worker machines. So right now we have configured only one, so that it will display only one option here. To begin the distributed testing, what you can do is you can either go to remote start all, which will send the test plan to all of the worker machine, or you can go to the particular machine by navigating to remote start and the IP address. So now if you select this option, what will happen is the JMeter will start the execution in the worker machine, as you see here, starting the test. And also in the runtime, you can see the output here. So right now you can see it is running. It will run for 20 seconds and then it will exit. You can see the results here. And once the test is done, we can just download the results. So now the test has been completed. And also, as you see, the number of samples is 55. And the response time is 90% is 43 milliseconds. And if you go to the worker node, here you can see the information about the finished the test on the host 192.168.0.37. So this is the very simple way of distributing the load. So distribution of the load, in the sense, it will not distribute the load actually. It will not distribute the number of threads. Instead, what will happen is, assume that you have a number of threads is 10 and you have 10 machines. So whenever you start the distributed mode in all of the worker node, it will be sent the actual copy of your test plan. So 10 multiplies 10 machine, which will actually inject 100 threads. So it will not distribute the load, meaning the number of threads. It will just send the test plan as it is, and then it will tell the worker node to inject the threads. And another thing is, make sure you are using the same version. If you are using any plugins, make sure you have the plugins installed in all of the worker machine, and you have any test data file like CSV or .dat or txt, and make sure the path and the actual file is placed across all the worker machines. So it doesn't send your actual test data, it will send only the test plan. It is your responsibility to keep all of your test data in the worker machine. Okay. Now let us close this, and I'm going to kill this session, and I'm going to exit the SSH. Now we are going to make use of the SSL setup. First, we will set up the SSL from the master machine. So what we can do is, let us go back to the property here, and we can make it as false, and we comment it out. And first we have to generate the rmi._keystore file. So to generate this, there is a key tool utility which comes with JMeter itself. But before that, we have to understand two aspects. One is the key alias. So here the line number 333, the key alias is RMI, and the password is change it. So this is the two default settings we are going to use. But if you want to change this, what you can do, you can change it here. Say QA Insights, and here also you can change it. And before you generate the JKS file, what you can do is go back to your jmeter.properties. So here there is a file called create rmi keystore.bat. So you can open this in your Visual Studio Code or your favorite editor. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to drag and drop here, and here if you see the line number 19, so this is the password you are sending, the store pass, change it, and this has a validity of 7 days. So this can be increased based on your requirement, but after 7 days, if something is not working, then you have to regenerate it using this key tool, and you have to keep all the RMI, the JKS file across all the worker node. So these are the two things you have to know. So what we are going to do is, we are not going to change the password and validity. So we are just going the default one. So here what I can do is, I can change back this to RMI and going back to PowerShell. And here I don't need this. So create RMI keystore.bat. I'm going to hit enter. So now this will ask the series of questions. So here the first question is first and last name. So I'm going to enter RMI and I'm going to enter QA Insights. Name of the organization is QA Insights. City is QA. State is OH and US and yes. Now this will generate the key store. So here you can see RMI underscore keystore.jks. So this has been generated. So if you go to the bin folder, you can see this file. So this file, you have to place it across your worker node. There's no other way. You have to SSH and copy it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to SSH again. So SSH pi at Q Insights. Okay, and so I'm going to ls. So I'm going to delete this, the previous one. Okay, so now you can see there is no RMI key store here. So I'm going to copy this using SCP RMI key store to pi at Q Insights to the current directory. So this will copy the JKS securely to my pi. And now if I hit ls, you can see the RMI underscore keystore.jks. So this one I'm going to copy this RMI to my documents, Apache JMeter 5.1 / bin. And if I change directory to bin folder, if I hit ls, you can see the RMI underscore keystore.jks. Here also I have to make some changes. So what I'm going to do is I have some issue with the editor. So instead what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the VNC server here to log in into my Raspberry Pi. So this is my Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to close this. And here I'm going to open the JMeter.properties file and search for RMI. Okay, so here you can comment this out, and I'm going to flip the SSL to false, and I'm going to comment it out and I'm going to save it. Okay, now what we can do, let us go back to the SSH here, and I'm going to start the JMeter server -d server.rmi. So I'm going to start the java.rmi.server hostname, and the IP address is 37. So this will now use the SSL setup basically, and you can see the key store location type equals JKS. So this was not the case earlier because we are not using SSL. Now I'm going to launch my JMeter. Now JMeter has been launched, and I'm going to open the same script, and I'm going to start the test. So if everything is setup is right, we can see the execution status here. So our SSL setup is working fine now, and also you can see the results here. Now let us wait for the test execution to be completed. Now the execution is going to complete in a few seconds, and once it is done, it will automatically display the finished the test on the host 0.37. So this is how you do the remote distributed testing in JMeter. So it is setup is pretty simple and straightforward. If you follow the instructions in the official documentation, you might hit some roadblocks, but this is the way you should do it. But of course, there are a lot of customization you can do. You can change the port number, you can change the key store file values, everything. So it really depends on your setup and how you want to do stuffs. So that's it guys on my side. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I will post all the commands, important links, everything in the description. Please check it out. And thanks for watching. Have a good day.
If you like my dad's videos, please subscribe to QA Insights channel.